Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Yes, at this moment, if you look at the news in this country, there are three major developments that are going on. One is the regional situation. The Prime Minister of Pakistan and the Army Chief visited Saudi Arabia, and now Army Chief is visiting Afghanistan. So that is also very important. The second one, of course, is the COVID situation that has caused a lot of consternation in this region, especially given the situation in India. And that is why this country keeps on taking all the precautions that are necessary. The third one, which for past 8-9 years has never left us, is accountability process. There are debates about accountability situation in the country. Recently, an episode took place where Amir Shahbaz Sharif, the head of PMLN, was allowed by a court to leave the country. And then when he was about to leave the country, he was stopped by the FIA. That actually has given a lot of grounds to people on both sides to speculate or make political statements. And the amazing thing at this moment seems to be, if you are watching news and if you are listening to both sides, PMLN side and PTI side, you feel that you are not looking at the commentary about the same situation. It seems that it is not merely about an opinion, it is about different realities. We are going to talk about all these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by a very accomplished panel. Hafiz Ahsan Ahmed Khokar, a legal expert, joins us in the studio. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Waqas Naseem Saab, representing Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the ruling party of the country. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Dr. Niaz Mirza, a renowned political analyst and also political economist, columnist, joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. We will be joined by the PMLN representation later in the program as well. We are going to introduce them the moment they join us. But let me start from the studio and let me ask Hafiz Ahsan Saab, what ails our accountability process? I want to actually go into the detail of the flaws in the system, so to speak.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. You have invited me to give my point of view on this very important issue, which has been the issue of the people of Pakistan for the last many years. The people of Pakistan demanding accountability. Many people who are in the government, they also speak about the accountability, but what is the net results? The net results is there is no conviction.
Okay.
And if there is a conviction, then there is an appellate stage in the High Court, and then there is a Supreme Court. And if you talk about the whole of the system, not only the accountability is, the conviction rate is Pakistan is almost 5 to 6%.
Okay.
So this is the system. Now specifically we talk about the accountability, what are the faults in the system, why it is not upcoming the demands of the people or the government.
One, the demands. B, or two, also the controversy. It attracts all the time. Why is it that it is so weak that politicians can dispute it?
But Afisab, if you linger on the procedure and if you linger on the reference, it makes controversy.
Okay.
In all over the world, there is a system. The criminal justice system revolves around the time-bounded justice. There is no dates. They fix a case and then decide the case. In Pakistan, judiciary is working independently. Accountable institution like NAB, it has its own functions, and there is no consultation process with the judiciary and with the government. The government says we are for the accountability, but there are certain limitations. They can't go beyond the limitations. Because if they go, they say
institutional independence is a good thing or a bad thing?
Judicial institutional independence is a good thing. But for the sake of the administration of justice, all the stakeholders, they should come on board and on the board through legislation. If for the sake of argument, every time the Supreme Court intervenes and the people who are in the NAB references, they are getting the bail on account of delay in trials.
Right.
That they keep on going into the courts, and there is a delay, and they are getting the bail orders.
Okay.
So here the Supreme Court orders that we should establish more courts.
Yeah.
Now there is another problem for the judges, but primarily I am focusing on 4 points. First, there is a poor or weak legislation, not only about the accountable system, but also the procedure.
Right.
The law is 99 ordinance, we are working on it, but the system which are working on 1898,
Okay.
this is another problem.
Procedures. Right?
Procedure problem. Then the second problem is the prosecution.
Right.
There is a problem with the prosecution,
Right.
and either it is...
I'm
Yeah.
going to come back to all those points, but very quickly, if you can just highlight all the four.
Yeah.
You have mentioned two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me take the number 3 and number 4 by name.
Then there is a court procedure.
Court procedure.
The court procedure in which the court is working, and like I am talking about earlier, it is a criminal procedure code.
And the fourth?
And the fourth one is the will of the government and the legislation.
Right.
I say the will of the government and the legislation, it is a correlating.
Right.
So if we come on thing, and finally the fifth point would be the judiciary.
Okay, you have just added one point.
The judiciary.
And we are going to talk about all these matters.
Yeah.
Before that, though, let me go to Waqas Naseem Sahab and ask him about the government's inability to actually see through the cases. You realize that when Shehbaz Sharif is allowed to actually leave the country, and then you stop him, and then we hear that Hudaybiyah paper mill case is going to be reinvestigated, given the entire history. It seems that you are gifting the opposition a narrative of victimhood in a platter. What do you have to say on that?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Pitafi Saab. We let Nawaz Sharif go, and you say that we have given him an NRO.
Okay.
We stop Shehbaz Sharif, you say we give him a symbol of
Nawaz Sharif was a convict. It was the first thing in the history of the country that you allowed the convict to walk free.
And that was a good thing or a bad thing?
It was a bad thing.
So we are trying to stop the repeat of that with Shehbaz Sharif.
Shehbaz Sharif is not a convict, is he?
Sir, he is going to be a convict if he gets away with it. Let's see what Shehbaz Sharif is. See. So the point which Hafiz Saab had raised was very pertinent, that we have very low conviction rate and very weak prosecution. These are the two hallmarks of our society.
Right.
But what we need to understand is that when political parties gang up together and they say, you protect my loot and I will support you in your endeavor to siphon off public exchequer money to exotic locations like Cayman Islands.
Right.
Now that is what is ganging up, and that is what is holding up.
So who's ganging up right now?
Sir, whoever is siphoned off, and you know very well that Imran Khan came to this country with a narrative that he is going to fight against corruption. This is what he brought to the people.
Absolutely, and one is not disputing the Prime Minister's position, or statement. I'm asking you about a very easy thing that you just mentioned, that political parties who are corrupt start ganging up. Can you give me an example?
Sir, I would say that in not naming parties, because I am not over there, but I can tell you very frankly that every thief, every person who has siphoned off money from people's passports who have never left Pakistan, they have required 23 telegraphic transfers into their account. People who have had dead rickshaw drivers give them billions of rupees in Karachi.
I understand that. I thought that you are going to talk about PDM, which is at this moment defunct, but you don't want to go there.
I don't want to name people. Name shaming is not my cause.
Which party are you from?
Sir, PTI.
Okay. And this is something new to me. Nobody does that. Everybody names.
I will not give you a free hit today.
Okay.
I'll be very cautious with my words, because the next question is, sir, let me assure you, with this Prime Minister, give him time, I assure you that the corrupt will be behind bars.
Okay.
Let this be assured. If I do corruption, or if somebody from Khan Saab's inner team does corruption, he will be held accountable, come what may, come
How?
may. Sir, he is going to bring to the...
You are not making new laws. That is given.
Legislation is not...
to me, the biggest problem is prosecution, which is always weak, right? You cannot bring a case to closure.
Okay.
And that doesn't seem to change either.
The alternate is military courts, like they were time bound to have within 3 months, and
That's
that is not acceptable. To
That
the
will
people.
not happen.
That will not happen.
Even under the NAB law, there is
Yeah.
a 30 days time bound.
They-
But sir, what is happening is that lab prosecute somebody, then the higher courts, the apex courts, then give
hang
them.
on. You just dropped a bomb. Are you saying that the army officers should come and prosecute because you can't?
No, sir, I am not saying the alternate to this. We cannot replace the judiciary.
Yeah, yeah.
So we enact legislation and we have a parallel system like Mian Nawaz Sharif enacted. That is also not acceptable. So give it time.
Okay. Let me give you time as well. Let me go to the third guest, Dr. Niaz Mirza. We have been talking about accountability and the politics of victimhood for quite some time. The question right now is that given all the political point scoring, the ideal of nabbing the thieves seems to be actually ebbing away. How to actually take care of that matter, sir?
Well, the thing is that the PTI came on, the mantra of, accountability, but it has ended up making the accountability process so controversial that it is difficult to see how, any genuine, transparent accountability can ever take place under the PTI. If it had, just let, the problem with, say PPP and PMLN was that, they were not letting NAB function at all, and it was almost a dead institution then. So the only thing that PTI had to do was to, remove that pressure that was not allowing NAB to function independently, and then just let it do its job.
Okay.
But then, PTI has just gone overboard. And there is this distinct impression, not just among neutral observers, but even the Supreme Court, that now PTI is doing the reverse. It's applying pressure on NAB to go after its opponents, its political opponents, and try to just nab them into all kind of cases. So with that kind of a situation, I think that it's time to take a break and come up with some new legislation with all parties on board, which ensures that NAB is independent of both kind of pressures. Then only you can have some kind of accountability. Now accountability against corruption is not easy anywhere, because corruption is not done in in the public sphere. It's done in numerous hidden manners, overseas accounts, and so on. So for a country like Pakistan, it's never going to be easy.
Right.
But when
Dr. Saab, that might be the case, but you were talking about the PTI actually driving this narrative. Are you sure that it is basically PTI which is driving the narrative of accountability? Don't you think that it is actually coming sporadically, it is actually organically coming from the pundits, from the media, and the demand for accountability is something that actually resonates with the people of Pakistan? If the government actually concedes any ground to the opposition, it might be seen as an NRO.
Well, I don't think so. If you look at, any public opinion poll of what are the most pressing, issues, it used to be terrorism, that's subsided now, but now it's inflation, joblessness, poor public services, and inflation usually gets about 3 to 5 to 10% votes. So I don't think it's, an organic demand. It's clearly a demand driven by the PTI narrative that, the corruption is Pakistan's biggest problem, and if you remove corruption, then Pakistan will become a Singapore. But if you look at the past 20 years, the kind of regimes that push accountability are those which have dubious legitimacy, and it is in their interest to try to, nab their political opponents which have genuine popularity and try to eliminate them. So it was the Musharraf regime and now the PTI regime. The PPP and PMLN did not have that angle. They were sure of their public mandate and they did not have to eliminate their political opponents. So it's only weak regimes that try to, eliminate their political opponents through, this flawed process of accountability, and that's what
Right. I'm told that Dr. Nisar Cheema MNA of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, joins us on telephone. Dr. Nizar Chima, let me welcome you and let me ask you, when it comes to the accountability process, it was basically your party which actually introduced the idea. The first ever accountability bureau was created by your party, headed by your party member. Why is it that your party keeps on making it controversial all the time?
Pitafi sir, our principal stand is that no system in the world can function without an effective system of accountability. But accountability must be transparent. It has to be across the board. It must not be targeted as it is nowadays. It must not be one-sided, politically motivated as the entire nation is witnessing nowadays. As you mentioned, yes, the concept of accountability was introduced by our government. The Accountability Bureau was established. I must admit that we also committed so many mistakes. I admit. During our time, let me confess, without any mental reservation, that it was not across the board. And we certainly committed so many mistakes, but we have learned from mistakes. We have learned from our past, and our stance is that now the system of accountability has to be reformed, has to be modified, has to be made acceptable for the entire nation.
When you said that you have learned from the past, I wonder which past are you talking about, because only 3 years ago you were in power, right? And for 5 years you stayed in power, you had all the means, you had majority in the parliament, you could make laws that you had promised in a charter of democracy. You did not do that. Now, I understand that there are bits and pieces, but just saying that we have learned from our mistakes and then you come back to the power making similar kind of different mistakes, does it not actually bode badly for the country?
Well, it's very unfortunate. I mean, in our culture, admission and confession of mistakes is something very, very unusual. But whenever, because it requires a lot of moral courage and broad-mindedness. But if there is somebody who admits the mistakes, the blunders, the mistakes of the past, nobody appreciates. Nobody appreciates.
I'm glad that you are congratulating yourself for courage. But the point with courage is that it has to show when you are in power as well. And whatever evidence we have got, we have seen that your party didn't take care of the problem. That's why we are debating it today.
I reiterate that we certainly committed so many mistakes, but the present government has set a new record of blunders of such the political victimization in the name of accountability. I mean, it is unprecedented, and it speaks of the vindictive mindedness, vindictive mindset of the present rulers. I mean, they have set new records, so many new records.
We have debated all these matters before as well. Do stay with us. I have to come back to the studio. Let me bring back in the guests who are waiting for their turn. Hafiz Ehsan Saab, since we are talking about the accountability process, the way it is going on, as a neutral observer, tell me that this narrative of victimhood, does it really have that kind of meat in it? I say this because if tomorrow, God forbid, you're going to open a case on me, I'm going to say it is most compromised process, and I'm the biggest victim. What do you say on this?
Since 1998, when the first time the PMLN government introduced the first NAB law,
97, yeah.
97 and 98, 2 years, and then 99, a new law came into being. And Dr. Saab had already admitted that there was some mistakes on their part, and there was victimization. And when the Musharraf came into power, the same process started. And when the People's Party and PMLN came back to the power, and they amended a law, the NAB law, and they amended in a way that the chairman NAB would be appointed by the consultation with the leader of the House and the leader of the opposition, meaning thereby that a person would be appointed from both sides that would be acceptable. And in accountability there is no acceptance. If you are going to lodge against anyone, they will definitely against you and your version, and they will say that it is not up to the mark, and there are certain areas of victimization. But the system is, we should overall our criminal justice system.
No, I get that. But because my question is more directed to current situation. The current chairman NAB came to his position through the same process that you have pointed out. But has he spared either of the two parties that appointed him?
No, the thing is, if he was appointed, and he was appointed by the Prime Minister Haqqan Abbasi, and at that time the leader of the opposition, Khurshid Shah. Now Haqqan Abbasi sir came on television and he said that it was his big mistake. So if
that is a constant narrative of PMLN.
If this is
it was a big mistake.
So Pitafi sahab, now the system is not giving results. This is the issue.
Right.
There is a delay in the justice system. This is the issue. But there is a weak investigation. This is the system.
I'm asking you, not a legal argument. This is your personal opinion. You have gone through the cases that have been filed against the Sharifs. Do you honestly think there is some meat to it?
Definitely. There is solid information. There is evidence on record. But now the problem would be how you present it in the court of law. This is the problem. There is evidence, and there are so many evidences that there are some transactions took place, but how you proceed on and put in the court of law.
So that is the problem of competence.
That is the competence.
And you are not actually changing that competence. You are ready in this program to bring in the military courts. I mean, come on.
Farrukh bhai, I heard two comments by my colleague. One was that witch hunt, and second is vindictive mindedness. So let me tell you what was vindictive mindedness. That was a gentleman named Saifur Rahman, who would go to the homes of the individuals, hold their women at gunpoint and say, join PMLN or you will be thrown out of the country. Vindictive mindedness was Changamanga, where 48 MPAs of the government party were picked up, locked up in a rest house inside the Cholistan desert, and they were brought on the day of Vindic. Next was, as Dr. Saab had very rightly said, that we had probably going on a witch hunt. Just tell me one case which was registered against the present rulers by Imran Khan. All of these cases, I'll just
that's a very good argument. I mean, thank you very much for raising it. So what are you taking credit for? If all the cases were registered by somebody else.
So there is no vindictiveness. We are just trying to prosecute them.
But you
prosecute them.
It was your cause.
Sir, listen. This is a NAB which was enacted by Muslim League Noon and People's Party. The chairman NAB was brought over by People's Party and Muslim League Noon. The cases were registered by Muslim League Noon against People's Party and People's Party against Muslim League Noon. Now we are trying to prosecute those people. And that is our narrative. And that stands very right. And just 1 second.
And you came to power promising that you are going to hold people accountable. In fact, at the start of the program, you said everybody will be
accounted. How is the mindset?
So how many cases have you opened?
Sir, I live in a place known as Bagh, and it is a very rural area, sir.
And a beautiful place.
Beautiful place, sir, but it is a very rural area. I was in a place known as Nikka Nada. And the name is very funny. And I was doing but we were just sitting. It had a small spring, so we used to call it Nikka Nada. Nada is in Padi, spring. And we were having speeches, and a young girl came in, and Panama ka faisla ho gaya. Panama result has come. And I asked the young kid, do you know where Panama is? I said, I'll give 5,000 rupees to the person who tells me which continent Panama is. Nobody knew. And that time I realized that Imran Khan hammering corruption has changed the mindset of the nation. Now they are alive to the situation of corruption, sir.
And that was a great thing. I agree that he actually built the narrative around Panama, right?
Sir.
And that's why the former Prime Minister was convicted, right?
Understood, sir.
You're credited, sir. But secondly, you also got elected. So you were supposed to move on and do more.
Absolute. Rome was not built in a day.
How many centuries do you need?
Sir, we require just 2 or 3 terms and we'll make everything right.
2 or 3 terms.
Just hear me out. Now, sir, how is PTI different? And Dr. Saab is our senior. I don't want to name him, but just to hear out. In AJK, there's PMLN government. For the past 4 years, PTI has been hammering that NAP should be enacted in AJK.
Okay.
Because the present Prime Minister in AJK used to get 2,000 rupees salary at
let us not accuse people.
Okay. No, I'm just saying NAP should be there.
Yeah.
Sir, NAP should be there.
Okay.
And for the past 4 years, PMLN government in AJK says that we do not want to have NAB. Oversight over there.
Okay.
So what is, if they are realizing that yes, the past was wrong and we want to better ourselves, let us start by saying that tomorrow Mian Nawaz Sharif says,
Kashmir has a special status. That's why
but
one
sir, the
doesn't...
law, we have the same rules and laws which we have in anywhere in the world.
Can you correct the laws first so that we have a more boisterous prosecution
yes,
in the country?
This is what you raised in the previous question I wasn't able to answer, sir. We don't have the numbers. This is a parliamentary democracy, Westminster democracy. We do not have the numbers in the parliament.
I'm a voter. It is not my lookout.
Absolutely. Now see, we went to the Senate and we had an interview with you about 2 months back and we discussed how Ayaz Naik Saab started saying that how you have to give us relief when we were discussing NAB laws.
No.
And we had to take over PTV, if you remember.
No, the gentleman actually said
So,
that I was asked to give a presentation on what are the weaknesses
sir,
of the NAB law.
sir,
I gave that and you just said that, look, they're asking for an RO.
so did you hear what Ayaz Naik Saab said? The video was released.
Okay.
Did it had anything with doing with legislation, or that was to give relief to certain quarters who were being isolated?
Okay, but prosecution means that you are
Low
not
conviction
going to bring in new laws because you don't have the kind of numbers in the
And then
parliament.
get labeled by of doing witch hunt and vindictive minded.
Yeah, but at least that will put a case to its logical end. It will at least give some closure to the people, right?
200% correct, and let me assure you, give Khan time, he will get it done.
Okay, you already have spent your 3 years in power, right?
2.5.
Almost 3.
3, okay.
Yeah, but let me go back to Dr. Niaz Mirza. Dr. Niaz Mirza, if I'm going to talk to my daughters and I'm going to tell them about the political situation, do you think it is wise for me to tell my daughters who are teenagers, minors actually, that we have to make peace with the idea of corruption in this country, that nothing can change?
Well, I mean, I would, give them a holistic picture. First of all, to tell them that, corruption is one of the many problems in Pakistan. And it's not necessarily the biggest problem. There are other problems like, establishment interference in politics, which is a much bigger problem. And then you also need to tell them that, accountability has to be even-handed. It has to be transparent. It should not, lead to victimization. And then, of course, you should also tell them about, the huge constraints involved in, pursuing, corruption cases, especially in a country like Pakistan, where, systems are so weak, where, prosecutorial abilities are so weak. So, just give them a holistic picture so that, they don't become,
Dr. Saab, about this holistic picture, have you come across anybody in your life who has asked for a bribe, otherwise something which was legitimate concern of yours would be doomed?
Well, as I said, I see a lot of problems in Pakistan and corruption is one of them. And, we need to make sure that we don't create a hysteria around it. That's what you have in Pakistan right now, a hysteria around corruption as if it's the only problem, as if it's so huge that it's, crippling the economy, and as if it's very, very easy to, tackle it. And if you tackle it, you will have huge progress. This is all a very hysterical account of corruption. corruption. We need something more well-rounded. That corruption is one of the many problems of Pakistan, and we also need to realize that many other problems may be more easy to tackle and may give much better payoff.
So definitely not a small conversation, short conversation with my children. I'll have to give them bullet point and PowerPoint presentations to tell them how complicated the country is. But the fact is that if one of their class fellows gets a position in a school or somewhere without any merit because of the family clout, the establishment of Pakistan should be blamed for it, sir. Is it true?
No, sad, but for the other things that it has done, and we all know what those things are.
Okay, right. Let me bring in Dr. Nisar Cheema once again. And Nisar Cheema, sir, can we go back to pre-99 PMLN and ask you to work with the government to ensure that corruption issue is taken care of, regardless of whose corruption it is, whether it is from your party or somebody else's?
Before coming to the issue of corruption, let me make it very clear that as far as the political victimization and vindictiveness of the present government is concerned,
it's a dialogue between
Batav
Naseem Sahab and Dr. Sahab.
Just a minute, please.
Okay.
These are not the points which are being highlighted by PMLN or PDM or any opposition leader or opposition party. These are the observations which have been made by the highest court of law of the country. The Supreme Court of Pakistan has observed, as you know, that the institution of accountability, National Accountability Bureau, is being used for political victimization, is being used for political engineering, and this institution has badly damaged its image of impartiality. These are the observations which have been made by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And as far as the corruption is concerned, Pitafi Sahab,
hang on.
Very important issue.
Sir, I respect what you're saying, but you cannot actually pick and choose, right? It was also Supreme Court of Pakistan which actually created a GIT, which actually went to the bottom of a Panama case, and eventually Mian Nawaz Sharif A was, removed from power and then behind the bars. At that time, you disputed that. So either you can support the idea that Supreme Court is saying what is correct, or then you can actually keep on pushing your narrative of victimhood. You cannot pick and choose, sir.
I mean, the observations made by the highest court of law of the country about the functioning of the National Accountability Bureau at present cannot be ignored, cannot be overlooked, And these are very important observations which have to be taken into account. And as far as the issue of corruption is concerned, Pitafi Sahab, let me ask you, yes, it is very important, but is it the most important issue which the common man of the country is facing at the moment? The common man of the country is facing the major issues, the difficulties, the miseries because of the incompetence, because of mismanagement, because of the bad
corruption is not one of them.
In the form of, the inflation, unemployment, the lawlessness. These are the issues which are being faced by common man of the country. And it's because of the incompetence and mismanagement of the government.
Okay, so I'm going to change the order of sequence of guests. With your permission, I have to, because there's a rapid fire session going on between the two. So you want to reply?
Dr. Saab is our senior, sir. I have great respect for Dr. Cheema Saab, and he noted or quoted a Supreme Court verdict which says that probably political engineering is being done by NAB. Now I am very happy that PMLN is discussing the same Supreme Court and its Chief Justice who were attacked, beaten badly by the same PMLN. Justice Sayyid-ul-Zaman Janjua, Sayyid-ul-Zaman Siddiqui, the same Supreme Court they attacked, and they held a parallel court, a military. Sorry, my apologies, my bad.
You just named their presidential candidate.
My bad.
And governor who was he was in coma, he was made governor.
Absolutely, sir. The same Supreme Court they attacked, and the same Supreme Court, because they said was not dispensing justice, they created alternate parallel judicial system by army.
With due respect, with your party, because it has been in power for the past 3 years, I don't want to travel back in time.
Sir.
I want to stay today,
true.
grounded in today's reality.
Sir.
And there are concerns that actually are clear to me. For example, PMLN is clearly picking and choosing. But so are you. Are you not?
Sir, please tell me over here, yet again I return to the basic question which I said. Volume 10 was not opened by the Chief Justice, by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. We did not impress upon that.
Okay.
If that would have been opened, a lot many poor Pandora's box would have opened up.
How do you know that?
So that is besides
It
the
is unopened. How would you know this?
So that is my gut instincts, and I have very nice shoulders tickling me, angels on my shoulders tickling me.
Okay.
It was closed because of reason,
Look,
right?
Look, if you are going to actually go into conspiracies and
Okay.
the insinuations, it is not going to solve the problem.
Okay, let's say it had nothing at all, but it was remained classified, and we did not push upon that.
Okay.
Because we did not want to go into a witch hunt.
Okay.
We did not register, yet again for the third time in the program I am saying, we had not registered one new case. Now what Dr. Saab had said very rightly, I have great respect from him, that corruption is an issue but not the issue. My point over here with you, Pitafi Saab, is that unemployment, illiteracy, violation of merit, economic instability, social injustice, political uncertainty, terrorism, sectarianism, racism, nepotism, tribalism, these are all hallmarks of corruption.
Okay.
Because corruption is in.
If you are that much
Sir.
clear-headed, drop everything else and do it.
Sir, we are trying, we are handicapped by legislation. We cannot have a revolution, this is evolution. Westminster's democracy. We don't have the numbers. Now we need to go to the electorate once again to get 2/3 majority.
So, in next 2 years, we are not going to see
Sir,
the
we are
change.
going to focus yet again once. Accountability across the board will
Okay.
happen. Sir, you will see that.
Okay.
You will see no financial...
When?
At the earliest, sir. That is priority number one for the...
After 2024, 23-24.
If we hasten the pace, we bring in more people in, we hire new prosecutors. These are all things we need to understand, because the government
Who is
prosecutor...
stopping you?
So we don't have the legislation for that. Please understand.
Okay. Is it true?
No, it's not true.
Okay.
Now, the government has the prerogative to issue ordinance, and they are issuing the ordinance.
Okay.
The second point is that how many laws or how many amendments they have been proposed by the Ministry of Law to the Parliament, and they are pending with the Parliament, and they have the majority in the Parliament, in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
So there is no restriction on that. The issue is that in that particular area is, one side the government is saying that it has a manifesto of the accountability, and the second time on the same side they are saying that it is an independent issue of the NAB.
Okay.
So the government is now in between the institutional autonomy and the manifesto.
Okay.
So here the issue is the
Who appoints the prosecutors?
it is the government and the NAB.
Okay.
The prosecutor general is appointed by the chairman with the consultation of the government.
Okay.
And now the second is, if now the Supreme Court has intervened, there is a provision in the NAB ordinance that every case has to be decided in 30 days.
Right.
Now the Supreme Court has asked to set up new courts, and they have asked more than 100 courts.
Right.
Now still they are in the process,
Okay.
and some process is being done, but
Okay.
now there is...
What does it need? What will it take to establish those, courts?
It is the direction is given by the Supreme Court to the government of Pakistan.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at this moment, they are not. They haven't come into being.
They are working on that, but the direction has been issued for the last 3, 4, 5 months back.
Okay. Okay.
So now the concluding argument would be on that,
Yeah.
that the justice and the accountability is not a statement.
Very true.
You need to act on it.
Okay.
And you act on it because we are living in a democratic country. We need to go through legislation.
Right. But because we are trying to look under the hood,
Yeah.
you mentioned these 100 courts that have to be established.
Yeah.
There was an order. Government is trying to do whatever it can. What are the bottlenecks?
2, 3 areas the government has identified. One is that the infrastructure. The
Right.
second is the prosecution side by the NAB side. Then the third is the appointment of the judges,
Okay.
because the NAB judge is appointed with the consultation of the concerned Chief Justice of the High Court. But my point would be that until unless you will not communicate and you will not interact with an institution, these bottlenecks will continue.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to actually conclude, Waqas Naseem sir?
Sir, I think these 100 courts will go a long way.
Okay.
The government would do utterly everything in its power to enforce them on the ground. The financial aspects, the appointment of the judges will be done in the letter and spirit.
Okay.
Let this be assured to the people of Pakistan that PTI will not use NAB as an instrument of arm twisting the opposition.
And you are going to appoint new prosecutors as well?
Sir, that is news to me, what I have heard from Qazi Saab. I think Chairman NAB is the competent authority to appoint the prosecutors. It would not have any input from the government as I know it.
No,
but probably
I am talking about the Prosecutor General
Okay.
is appointed, and the other prosecutors, they are appointed by the NAB, but they need budgets.
All right.
budget allocation would be made, but the lower prosecution will be done by that.
All right. Dr. Niaz Murtaza, your conclusion, sir.
I think it sounds quite hypocritical of PTI to, keep harping
You have
about
to unmute your mic, sir.
after it has filled its party with all the corrupt people that it can find, take allies with very dubious background, and then, drag its feet on the foreign funding case and all the other corruption cases against its own members, and then, keep harping about the corruption of the political opposition. And the other funny thing that I found with the examples that Mr. Naseem gave, that all of them were 25 years old at the attack on Supreme Court, Saifur Rahman. So in effect, he's given, a certificate of good behavior to the PMLN by giving 25-year-old.
Right. Right, Dr. Saab. At this moment, I'm told that we have to conclude. Let me go to the other Dr. Saab. Dr. Nisar Chima Saab, your conclusion, sir, very quickly.
Well, Pitafi sir, the government must come forward with some solid and concrete suggestions. And if the suggestions are in the national interest, we'll certainly cooperate with the government.
Right.
And
That's
each and every
music to
national issue.
everyone's ears, sir. I'm told that we have to conclude the program. Dr. Nisara Machima Saab, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Niaz Murtaza Saab, thank you very much for your precious time. Hafiz Ahsan Ahmed Khokar Saab, thank you very much for your time. Waqas Naseem Saab, thank you very much for your precious input as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. We keep on talking about systemic bottlenecks, right? And then there is this narrative which makes everything controversial. But here's the point. Regardless of there is PTI or PMLN or not,